Okay, Dan. Live podcast. We just recorded it. I'm always blown away at the conversations that we have between us. We have wildly different hunts this season, and so our strategy is wildly different, but it's also similar as we're hunting the same species. So mule deer, antelope. I mean, there's even some elk stuff in there, but great conversation, man.
Yeah, it's crazy that, we're talking about two species, just these early season mule deer and antelope, and our tactics, the habitats, the topography, it's so vastly different, the styles of hunting. But yeah, we really were able to dive into what our strategy is and how we're going to both step into a new area and hopefully find the best of success that we can. But this is why we do it. It's so fun and it's energizing, and I think you guys will definitely find that today listening to this podcast.
Yeah, 100%, man. Logistics. We talked about the reasons why, enjoying the process. There's so much good stuff in this podcast. So we'll get right into it. We just want to thank a couple sponsors for today's show, which just mean the world to Dan and I. They're tools that we use for these hunts, great companies and great products. So Stealth Cam, you talked about it today, so you'll be using some cams on your hunt to be able to try to find that next level buck.
Yeah. Crazy area that I'll be hunting, desert, lowlands, going to be focusing on water. So trail cams on water holes. I mean, it's super important, especially as you'll guys hear in the podcast, you're looking for the answer to the equation. And that's a big, mature animal, whatever it is you're hunting. And so the tools are important along the way. And on glass is no different. A digiscope, adapter for our phones is a little tab on the back. While we're scouting, while we're out there, we're not only taking images of perhaps target animals, it allows us to judge better. It allows us to study them better. And so when you have two tools right there, it's crazy to even think that we're getting sponsored by On Glass and Stealth Cam, because they're two valuable tools that I would be using anyway, you'd be using anyway. So it's just, we're blessed to be able to work with companies that fit what we do so well.
Yeah, 100%. I love the on glass, the truck adapter as well. I'm using that for hands-free, which is really nice. It's an added feature that you just pretty much get with the purchase of with the on glass for digiscoping. But yeah, it's huge. To be able to digiscope, to be able to stealth cam, man, it just changes the game, and great tools and great products and great people behind them that I love to show support as well. So thanks to those guys for their support of the podcast. Over at Eastmans, so we're working away. Your elk hunt is going to drop this Saturday, which actually is last Saturday by the time this podcast releases. Man, I couldn't be more pumped to watch this video. I hear a link's coming out today where I'm going to get a sneak peek at it, but man, you got to be proud how that turned out. What an epic elk hunt.
Yeah, it's definitely turning out well. Probably a hunt that I'll never experience again. Just incredible action. And yeah, it's released. We're releasing episodes every week. So yeah, if you guys are listening to this podcast, get on to the Eastman's Hunting Journal's YouTube channel and check out our new episodes of Beyond the Grid, because yeah, we have some great ones. I think we're at 5 elk hunts that we're going to be releasing during this new season this summer. In July, it's going to be busy with new episodes. So super exciting stuff.
Yeah, and that high country deer hunt, which I think is one of the better films I've put together, will release in July as well. So yeah, be on the lookout, subscribe to it, put out a bunch of great content. We pour our heart and soul into it. It's do-it-yourself, public land hunting at its best. And so, yeah, man, it's going to be really fun to watch those come out. So make sure you subscribe. Check out the other podcasts we do, also the magazines, and we do have the Elite Bundle membership as well that we're putting together. So that gets you both magazines. It gets you TagHub, Deer Collective, Elk Collective. So brush up before your hunt this year, whether you have a bow hunt or a rifle hunt, you can brush up on those. And so we bundle it all together in one membership at an affordable price. You can check that out as well.
Yeah. And if you're just looking for the Elk or the Deer Collective, use code LOB, L-O-B, at checkout. And that's when you're buying the collectives individually. So guys that want to get in on that can also do that as well.
Yeah, and save 75%.
75%.
Yeah, pretty much giving it away at this point.
Yeah, it's the cheapest you'll ever see it.
Yep, for sure. So, yeah, check those out, everything we're doing over here at Eastmans. And thanks, you guys, for supporting the podcast. We sure appreciate it. And, man, it's a great episode, Dan. Yeah, we should get into it here.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
We'll do.
All right. Good morning, Dan. Gosh, we're doing a live podcast. Kind of nice to catch up and hear everything you got going. Man, it's getting exciting here leading into season.
Yeah. These in-person ones are much more fun anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, with drought results coming out and looking forward to season and all this stuff on our plate, it's like, man, it's time to go.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely go time. Yeah, trying to get everything sorted and ready to go and prepared, and then just prepared mentally too. Like, it is a grind of a season. Like, we put a lot into all these different hunts, and throughout the fall, it seems like it all comes at once, and so it's trying to dial everything in this time of year to make sure that I'm good to take off and be gone for weeks at a time, or probably not months at a time. I'm sure I'll check in, but it is a month of a long season, that I have to be ready for. So yeah, that's what I'm getting ready. I'm sure you are too.
Yeah, starting to think about gear and, doing some arrow changes, and broadheads are the same with the Evolution hides, but yeah, getting new arrows. That's kind of like on my forefront right now, is because what are we, July 7th today?
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, the basics are to make sure our gear is absolutely dialed on what we're going to do. And then as we push through the summer to, start scouting and how to do this effectively, and how do we find, maybe some target bucks. It's a daunting task, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you drew a unit and you have this huge, vast area, and you're like, where do I start?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's hard to know when and where to start on, something like that. But these early season, and that's why I love hunting mule deer early season, is they're predictable, right? Summer patterns, velvet. It's probably my favorite time to hunt mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
Rut hunting can be fun as well, but this early season velvet time frame is sure fun because they're so patternable.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're alluding to and talking about, because we just had a discussion when we got together this morning. So yeah, talking about early season mule deer, and I do have some mid-season and late season, but I do think for a bow hunter, that early season is the best chance at a big buck. And my walls show that. The biggest deer that I've killed, the biggest bucks I've killed are in that early season. And so, yeah, trying to dial it in, we both have brand new units we're hunting for the early season. So I've got a high country early season hunt, a place I've always wanted to hunt. It's got some good high elevation stuff. But to be honest, Dan, I'm not sure if the high elevation stuff is going to be where they're at. Like, I'm sure I can turn up some bucks there. That's kind of my specialty. But, kind of my intel on the unit is they're in a lot of the mid-range stuff, which is still high country, but there's a little bit more brush and aspen patches and a little bit more cover. Now, some of the biggest deer in the world are coming from this place, but it's not going to be an easy feat to kill one. And, I look at the success rates, and that's great, but I think a lot of them, too, are even coming from this low oak brush. They're coming out of ag into this public land, into a lot of this low country as well. And so my scouting, it's just like you stated, it's a bit daunting because I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to find them, how I'm going to find them. I'm having to scout all these different habitats for these deer and kind of make my hunt plan and then get down there to scout as well. And I know you have a new unit that you're going to hunt mule deer early.
Yeah, it's, not every mule deer unit is black and white, and especially units that are producing big bucks. And that's a good example right there is, you might have some black and white units that you have specific alpine habitat, and then maybe the mid elevation stuff that you're referring to isn't really the best habitat. But then you find areas, specific parts of the country in the western United States that mid-range stuff is actually better habitat, and it can depend on the weather and how wet the year is, et cetera, on where these mule deer are. But it's probably the most challenging to find, and that's probably why this unit that you're referring to that you're going to be hunting is producing some of the biggest bucks right now, right, is because they're hard to hunt. They're brushed up. They're getting age on them. And so that usually that will tell you and why these bigger bucks are being harvested at probably certain times, like during rifle season, during the rut, right, when they're most susceptible.
Nailed it.
And during the mid and the early seasons, it might be a little bit more difficult. And so this is probably not like a black and white hunt for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, daunting stuff. And then on the contrast, like for me, you know, this year I was like, man, it's time to hunt mule deer again. And I haven't chased, let me rephrase that. I haven't applied for mule deer tags in Wyoming the last couple of years in my normal spots, or where I've hunted them general in their normal spots because of the die-off. Giving them a break for a couple of years. That's kind of where I've been at. And so, you know, I'm going to apply for some desert units. And, you know, I drew a desert unit this year, which is, they're harder to draw, and it's different style hunting. Very vast badlands. All the country looks the same. Usually it's BLM, so roaded access is pretty prevalent. There's not a lot of like roadless areas in this type of country. But sometimes you can find like wilderness study areas within BLM that can give you some roadless areas, but that doesn't mean that it's habitat that a mule deer is going to live. And so, yeah, just two vastly different habitats that we're both going to be hunting early season, and it's very intriguing, but probably the most challenging of any Western hunt that I can think of.
Yeah. That desert too is usually lower densities.
Yes.
So it's like tough to dial them in there, where I'm hunting higher densities, but I've got so much cover. But yeah, you talk about a challenging hunt. You can't call mule deer, and you have to stalk them and or ambush them. But mule deer, their instincts are just so keen that they're really tough to kill. You know, it's it isn't black and white. And so yeah, right now, you know, it's trying to dial in these units and do our due diligence in new areas to try to learn them and try to dial them in, get some scouting days. I'm sure you've got scouting days planned. I've got scouting days planned, and it's quite a drive from my house, but I've just got to figure it out. Whether I show up, you know, it's tough. I'm, you know, you talk about dialing in arrows. I have a hunt I'm leaving on here a couple weeks to Hawaii that I'm really looking forward to, and it's a great warm up for season and things. But yeah, as I get that plugged in, as I get my antelope hunt plugged in, all of a sudden I start looking at available days. And I'm also scouting an elk unit, which I got a great day in Saturday that I did a huge trail run in there and found elk and found this new spot and water and things. But boy, you start running out of time pretty quick. So it's so important to get a feel for these new places. And if it was a place I've already hunted, you know, I might not have time to scout it or make time to scout it. But being a new unit, like, God, I just have to get boots to ground in there. I have to see it. Like, e-scouting is not enough. But even on the e-scouting side, you talk about spending hours in a unit just on the computer, like just trying to mark different vantage points, different places I can see. There's a big burn in the area. I want to hunt the edges of that. There's high country in there that I got to make time to backpack in. But I'm just spending a lot of time. Like, by the time I get to this unit to put boots to ground, whether that's scouting or hunting, like, I've already spent so many hours where I have the unit pretty much memorized. I know the low country spots, the mid-range spots, the high country spots I want to hit. But it's tough when you have a big unit because you just don't have enough time to scout all of those places. So you have to like pick and choose what's your A spot, B spot, C spot, and go down the line, because I don't have as many days to check out 10 different locations. Like, I may only have 4 or 5 days scouting down there. But yeah, it's difficult and daunting, but the challenge is what kind of excites us too, is hunting new places, challenging deer, and trying to find those real next level bucks, those older age class bucks that are growing those huge racks that get us excited. And the opportunity is there, but boy, you sure have to put in the time right now.
So you said this word like 18 times in this last little sequence, time. And I think that's the biggest hurdle in modern life, right? And especially if you draw a couple tags, like I have a pretty good antelope tag too. And it's like, okay, these seasons, antelope starts August 15th, and then, my deer hunt starts September 1st, and then let's not even talk about elk hunting yet. But I'm focusing on these tags because they're limited entry, and it's like, holy smokes, we have 6 weeks left before it's opening day for antelope for me. Same
Me
for
too.
you.
Yeah.
And that's not a lot of time. And so what you're bringing up is time is so precious, and it's almost impossible. Like some of these units that aren't black and white, like you can't, there's not literally enough time. If you're a working man, like providing for your family, you don't have enough time to scout a unit properly if you want to make the most of that unit. And so I think this brings up, a great point where, just boots on the ground is very good, but you still can't cover everything, let alone a fraction of a unit. And so, new unit for me, a new unit for you. So I need to tap into another resource. And so if I'm applying for another unit or am going to be hunting another unit, I'll tap into my circle, right? Or to some guys I know, some locals, and try to get, something, a starting point, maybe a little bit of info. And I really believe in these limited entry areas too. This is where it's important to call the biologist as well. And, you can hope that you have a competent biologist in your unit, because it's not the case in all units, in all areas of the states, of biologists actually being competent at their jobs. And so I think you can use information from them as well to really narrow down the general, tract of where you're going to go and put your time in for scouting. And so, like, for example, like thinking about your unit, and I'm picturing what it is, and I don't know if I should ask some of my friends if they've hunted this unit in the past, but it's been challenging because of getting eyes on deer. And so I know they've struggled, but where a biologist can really help you out. And it's not like you're like, where should I go? These are questions that you're not asking a biologist. Not that I need to tell you this, but for guys or for me, like when I ask a biologist, I'm going to ask them general questions. And because of I've done my homework on the species, like I get what makes the species tick, I can put the rest of the pieces together based on my general questions to the biologist. So for example, if I was, digging into your area, you figure out the local biologist, call them up and be like, I have this area, in general, where are these deer summering? Elevate or even say, what's their go-to food source in the summer? And maybe they don't know. It depends on how geeky these biologists are. And they are out there in Western Wyoming. Gary Freilich, he's very good, and he understands every little intricate detail of these mule deer and every time of the year what they're feeding on. And so you can hope that you get a good biologist for your unit, right? And you can learn a lot of general information, like the movement of deer, where are they wintering generally, where are they summering generally, is it a wet year down there, is it a dry year down there? If it's a dry year, you can maybe expect they're going to be a little bit higher. If it's a good acorn year, or if it's a wet year, maybe they're going to be a little bit lower. I found that out hunting Colorado a couple years ago for elk. And so there's these things that you can kind of ask a biologist, and I'll do the same thing on my hunt. Not that I really maybe need it there because it's so vastly different, and we can get to that in a minute. But you kind of figure out these general ideas, and then, okay, where am I going to start spending my time looking? So it allows you to narrow things down just a little bit, when you're looking at this big picture of a daunting new unit. So there's a mindset that you have to go in with. And I think if, you do it with the right steps and you don't waste too much time initially with maybe boots on the ground or driving when you don't really know what you're looking for, there's things that a guy can do to really elevate his ability to find the pockets of deer a little bit quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such a great point. Yeah, I need to touch bases with the biologist in there. I do have a contact in the unit, and, he's hunted it knows it. He's killed big bucks there, but I do know that he specializes more in the rifle seasons. So that's a different time of year that I'm hunting. So he can tell me information. I also think a fresh perspective on places. Like, I've hunted my valley, my home valley, for 20 years. And I have a kid that works for me that I've had him on the podcast. His name's Tristan. He's 24, and he's a great bow hunter. But, he brings a fresh perspective to the valley. Like, he doesn't have any preconceived notions. He just goes where he thinks is good. And so he's hunting a range that I don't even really hunt for bears anymore, or that I don't even really hunt. But he thinks about it in a fresh way. He doesn't have this preconceived notion of where they're going to be. And I think that's important, too, is like, I've been hunting mule deer a long time. And so I get intel and information from this guy I have about the unit. And I've learned a lot, and he knows more about the unit than I do. And he's killed some great bucks in there. But in the same breath, it's like, well, he doesn't focus on that high country. And I think I think there's some bucks that are getting by that. Like, that's my specialty. So I can look at Google Earth, or I can look at maps and go, God, that's bucky country in there. There's got to be some bucks hanging around in there. So I've got to go check it out, even though my intel is pointing me away from that stuff, and so I want to pay attention to what he says. I know he knows a lot about the unit. It's a great resource for me, but in the same breath, I almost have to just go check it out for myself and get in there too. And I'm not the best at using my resources. You're really good at it. I like fresh theories and fresh thoughts, and I like to get into a place and get a feel and start seeing some deer, and then that leads me to more deer. So I'm kind of like to figure it out on my own a lot of times. But I do need to touch bases with the biologists in there. I do need to ask those important questions. And so, yeah, these biologists, they work for us, and it's just a conversation you have. So I don't think you want to exclude places, or like maybe it does narrow your focus on where you want to concentrate from what you hear, but I still just can't leave that high country stuff alone. Yep. There's too many good deer features up there. I know deer like to summer up high. I know the feed is good in there. That's where I've always found deer, and I found them in places that nobody else has. That's why I found good hunting in a lot of the bucks I've taken. So I can't overlook that, even though a lot of my intel is pointing me away from that. So I don't know. It's just a balance, I think, when you're trying to use a unit. And I think we all have different processes that we go about it. And your process works really well. And you kill good deer, good bucks, good antelope, and same for me. And so I have to almost trust my process a little bit too, as I start looking through a unit of like booster ground. And maybe I get up there and I don't find any deer, and they are in the middle country, and that is where I need to focus. But the good thing is that I've also e-scouted all that country too. So I can jump to it really quickly if it doesn't pan out.
And that's the beautiful thing of it, because it's just math, right? When you're thinking of a hunt, and we know what the answer is. The answer is arrowing a great big buck, a mature deer.
Yeah.
And, you have a variable in the equation, and that's, okay, I have a friend that has killed some big bucks during rifle in this time of year. And you're like, okay, that's great, and I'm going to put this to the side, and now I need to figure out these other variables. And what you have on your side with the alpine is you can see it. So you're going to know relatively quick if the deer are using it in the summer or they're not. And so you can go to the alpine, right, and be like, okay, let's hunt this or scout this for a couple days. And they're either there or they're not, right? Fairly simple in most areas. So you're plugging in another piece of the equation and checking that off the list. And so now you have another variable. You're like, okay, because you understand mule deer, Bill's killing these great bucks here during rifle. They're not in the high country, early. So now I have some of this mid country, but you have more cover, so it's a little bit more difficult. So I got to be a little bit more careful with e-scouting, or maybe just a little bit more attentive to detail of finding those vantages, because hunting the brush is tough, right? Very tough. And I've been there. You end up sometimes wandering around in this brushy-ish country because you believe that the deer are there. Maybe you saw a buck on the trail that wasn't quite a shooter, and you know that deer are using this, but there's no way to glass it. And so then you just have to be there, right? It's a time thing. And then that's the type of hunting that can suck 10 days out of you pretty quick. And so there's all these things that you're putting together with the equation that you know the answer for. But so you're doing the math backwards, and that's the fun of it, right? Like what you just expressed, that's the fun of it, and everybody kind of has their way of doing it. And like what you described, you're checking things off. You're checking the boxes of the yeses and the nos. That's going to lead you up to the answer to the equation.
Oh, that's such a good way to think about it. Yeah, and I've been here before as well.
Yeah.
I've looked at units that produce good bucks, and I've gone, man, that high country looks amazing. I'm going to focus on that high country. I'm going to scout it. I'm going to hunt it hard. And I go up in there, and I might find a few bucks, but I just don't find them. And then I have to adapt, and pretty soon I find them in the mid-country in the sagebrush rolling hills, and all of a sudden now I'm on the big bucks, and that's where they're living. That's the country they're really using. Not that there can't be a few up high, not that there can't be a few down low, but that mid-country, that rolling sage is where those bucks really want to be. And so I've been here before. I've done this before where, yeah, you could waste a whole hunt in the high country with not many deer there. Or you could waste a whole hunt in the mid-country hunting thick brush that sucks a bunch of days out when there's actually bucks up high that you could get on, And so it is this tough equation. I like how you said you work it backwards. The goal is to arrow a buck. That is the end of the equation, and now you have to just work it backwards to find where they are. And maybe they'll be in the ag working up into open BLM lands down there. I think with the success rates, there's pretty good success rates. Guys have to be killing them somewhere, and so there's a lot of roads in this country. Maybe they're killing them off the roads in the mid-country. Maybe they're killing them off the bottom, and maybe that's where I need to focus. But it's a lot of guesswork and a lot of just making my hunt plan and trying to really budget my days to where I don't waste too much time in one spot that doesn't have the deer. Like I've got to dial it in and put myself into deer. The key to killing them is being into them. And you can waste a lot of country where they're not, or waste a lot of time in country that just doesn't have the higher populations where there's a lot of does and fawns and smaller bucks and things. And so, yeah, it's kind of the fun thing of trying to dial this in. And now you have the challenge of trying to find deer in really low densities, and low density desert hunts are difficult, because again, just like where I'm hunting, there's a lot of spots where deer aren't, and all the country looks similar. So your e-scouting is really difficult where you can't find a green basin that looks really bucky. It all looks the same with rolling canyons and hills, and so you've got to look for good vantage points. You're going to have to go look for tracks in that unit and see what country they're using. I probably, like in a lot of desert habitat, I pay attention to water and I walk water holes looking for tracks. Like your tactics for your hunt to find deer are a lot different because you have 300 square miles or whatever, 500 square miles of all good deer habitat with low densities, but there's some good bucks somewhere. So you got to start figuring out how you can find those bachelor herds of bucks in there.
And isn't that, as you're describing it, isn't that just amazing? We're talking about the same species, but it's almost like we're hunting different species because of how wildly different.
Yeah.
Like the places that they're living and the tactics that we're using, it's like we're hunting a different species.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the cool thing about how adaptable they are
mm-hmm.
and where they can live. But yeah, it's wildly different and it's completely different. You don't really have, like feeding features that you're going to be keen in on, let alone able to see them from a master vantage, because you're not dealing with any brush, so that's not an issue. But you're dealing with this topography, right? All the coulees and the cuts, and probably where these bucks are keen in on. I mean, it's the desert, and if you ever been to the Wyoming desert, it's pretty arid. It's pretty dry. It's not like you have like great grass out there where they're going to be feeding on a slope. That's not how it is. That's not the reality. You have sagebrush, you have a lot of dirt, you have some other, forbs that are really, close to the ground. But what I'm anticipating are these cuts, these very harsh cuts that have shade most of the day, and there's going to be grass, right? There's going to be food sources. And so knowing that, and then once again, talking to a source that has hunted it during rifle, never hunted it during archery, no archery experience out there, but hunting it during rifle, it's not really like, a migratory unit. These deer like traveling or moving down the mountain from their summer features down to like where they rut. That's not a thing. It's just they're just mixing around based on, where the feed is, and then where the does are, which is where the feed is during the rut as well. So, like you say, on Google Earth or on X, I can scout it, e-scout it, and it all looks the same. And so I'm not looking too close at that, but I am. But what I'm doing is looking for water sources, right? So I'm once again, I got my equation, and now I have to figure out what the variables are, and then how to get those on my side or how to get those answered. And so early, it's the desert. I need to focus on water. And so hopefully you have a hottish, dryish August, because mule deer need water. And that's going to help concentrate them around the water sources. So I get onto OnX, and I can locate all the tanks, the stock tanks or some of the natural water sources that are in the unit, and then take a look at the road system and then decide, okay, I need to check all these places. And now how can I do this efficiently? So hopefully I can have some sort of motorized trail or, 2-track in these cases that have several different places that I can check within a 10-mile radius. And I'm traveling quick because I need to be efficient, and this is summer scouting. So this is, I'm laying out my plan, basically. Not only do I need to do some vantage point glassing, which is only going to really do so much, right? Because you can't look at all the stuff that you need to look at, because there's only so much time of in the morning and the evenings that they're on their feet, right? You can't be everywhere at once, and I don't have all summer either. So finding these water sources and putting trail cams on them. And so at least that I have a general area to start when it comes to actual hunting, letting the trail cams do the scouting for me. Mm-hmm. And I mean, what else do you do in the summer like that, unless you have tons of time where you can just sit up on vantage points every morning and every evening to find a buck that's, an age class that you want to take. And so, yeah, wildly different and low densities. And you hear this too, talk to my buddy that's telling me about this unit is, nothing is as good as it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I think that's a blanket case for 90% of the places out west, 95% of the mule deer units in the west probably. And so, yeah, you factor that in too. And guess what? Even when you draw a limited entry tag, doesn't mean you're going to have an easy time finding that 7-year-old buck or a 180 buck or whatever your goal is in a limited entry unit. And so going back to success rates, like what you said, good success rates on your end in your unit. And so usually high success rates are there's either like deer everywhere or they're next to the road, because guys that are actually backpacking, and I know it seems big, when we talk about backcountry and bow hunting elk and mule deer, but it's just a fraction of hunters that actually do that and that are successful. So when you look at a statistic, it's not guys like you that are the bulk of a statistic of a success rate. So I have to remind myself that too. And so it's like, okay, if I'm having a 40% or even a 30 to 40% success rate in a unit, that's insane for a bow hunt. That's insane. So you probably have some really good hunting on your hands, and these deer are fairly accessible, is what I would take from that.
It's like a beautiful mind trying to figure out this equation that you put into math. Like you say, the end goal's the same, but as we start working our way backwards, it's so vastly different. One thing that helped me in open country, I haven't hunted the exact country you're going in, but I have this thing that comes to mind. So last year I started hunting this new spot, and this new spot is like breaks country. So like a lot of the cover is like made from the ungulation and topography. There's not a ton of trees around, and mule deer need shade, need cover. So where I'm hunting in this high country hunt, I got all the cover in the world. That doesn't even factor into my equation because there's cover everywhere. But in your equation, like, cover is more precious. And like you mentioned, the shade and the grass. The other thing is the shade and where deer bed. When they don't have a lot of trees, they're using the ungulation and using the sides of the hillsides that are shaded, and those are the ones they want to bet on. And it's all shaded from the country they're living in. And so I had this new place that I hunted last year. Now, you hunt this new place, I'm going to hunt it again this year. I'm going to hunt it like a mid-season around October. It's a great spot. It grows some great bucks. There's great populations. But if you go in there and if you work north to south and you grab vantage points that are looking to the north, so you're looking to the north, so you're looking at all the south facers. Well, there's no shade on any of the south facers. The place looks barren. It looks empty. There's no deer walking around anywhere. But you flip that and you hunt from north to south, and now you're glassing all the north facers. There's some dang good bucks and good deer populations in there, but they're all on the north facers using that ungulation and that shade as their cover to bed down because they don't like the sun. And so it looks like two different areas. Just hunting it and grabbing your vantage points to do that makes all the difference in the world in this unit that doesn't have a lot of cover. So cover is going to be a major factor in the place that you're hunting as well. And so remembering that when you're finding vantage points, and not just e-scouting the best vantage point that shows off the most country, but that shows off the most country that has the most shade, that has the most bedding features. Because like you say, you only got morning and night when they're moving. And a lot of these mule deer that are moving, they want to be close to where they're going to bed as well. And so it's just a vastly different unit when you're glassing south than when you're glassing north, when you're glassing the north features instead of glassing the south features. And so that's something to tap into in that country, and something I'll have to tap into my mid-season hunt when I hunt that place, because it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, it's almost like, first you're identifying where the deer aren't going to be. And so you're working backwards again, where they're not going to be, what's not suitable for, holding a deer. And so that's what I do have on my side, is finding some of the steepest canyons on Google Earth or on X, and some of the features that you can, place the sun at certain angles. I know Google Earth does. I don't know if OnX has that feature or not, where you can set the sun at a given time, and then it shows what is shady and what is sunny. And so that's a good reminder for anybody, for me, for anybody, that when you're dealing with it, because you're absolutely right, you're focusing on where the deer aren't going to be and planning your glassing strategy around where they're going to be. And yeah, you're hunting it completely different. So in the mornings, I need to be looking at stuff from the northeast, right, with the sun at my back from the north, and knowing and see, a lot of times, like with elk or something, they're feeding on those south and west faces in the mornings, so you might not see anything until mid-morning when they come onto that stuff to bed. But in some of this desert stuff, there's nothing to eat on the south and west faces, so you just have an advantage there, because they have to be living on these north and these east sides for feed and for cover, because the south and west side offer nothing. And so that's almost an advantage. It's a very great point to bring up. And so that narrows it down, right? Mm-hmm. So all these little things that you're narrowing it down, and it's like, okay, now I know where to start looking, and I know where to set my trail cams. Now I just need to find the one. Right, find the buck that I'm after, and that's where the trail cams, in my case, would play a big part. Now in Wyoming, there's no cell signal out there anyway, but you set them, and then every week go check them. And once again, got to be efficient with your time, with your travel, with when you're going to check them, and so you're factoring that in as well. And so, like for me, dirt bikes are going to be a huge role in this time frame of scouting and only hunting. And then, since it's a eroded unit, BLM, lots of roads, when it comes to hunting, I'll probably switch to e-bikes so I can slink around this stuff silently. So there's all these tools that you're using and that you have to gather up to make the most of a unit, and to really hunt it with the detail that we need to be using. in this day and age to find a good one, because it's harder than ever to find a big mule deer buck on public land. It's just tough.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, I love the plotting and the planning. This discussion is definitely next level, how to find big deer. I think right along with that, like the early season hunts, so deer, we both mentioned we have an antelope tag. My antelope strategy is like wildly different than my mule deer strategy. And so antelope for me, like, I guess if I didn't know where antelope reside in the state that I'm hunting or the unit that I'm hunting, I might want to go scout and find numbers, but almost my antelope strategy is on the back burner. Like, that's just something that I'm going to start hunting August 15th. Like, I know where to find them, and I know throughout all the years that I've hunted kind of where I find antelope. And I don't really need to scout them to find an 80-inch buck. I'm going to go at that in real time. So I'm going to spend my time scouting for mule deer, scouting for elk, which I just ran a good scouting mission the other day in a place I'd never been. That was great. I found water, found a bunch of elk in there, everything I need to see. But I'm spending my time scouting for those. And then antelope, which I love antelope. I want to try to kill a really good one this year. But that's almost like a real-time hunt for me. So antelope, like I just have a strategy for during season that I'm going to cover country. And antelope, I don't go hiking into the vast backcountry. Like I use my glass and I use those tools that you're talking about. I use my vehicle a bunch, and I know that I'm going to have a bunch of windshield time. And it's not my favorite. I'd rather be out hiking. I'd rather be out, and I will hike for them, and I will get stalks, and I will get plays. But I got to figure out where they're at first and find a shooter buck, and then make plays on them. So my antelope strategy for my early season, and maybe some guys do it different, but for me, I'm just going to start hunting them, and I've got some ideas of where I want to go and what I want to look at, and I'm going to try to go find a buck to stalk. So what's your antelope strategy?
Yeah, it's just, I'm chuckling on the inside because, man, they're so vastly different, right, on deer and antelope hunting. It's just so vastly different. You have deer that are like hiding out, hidey holes. They don't like to be out in the open, and then antelope are just kind of wherever, and they like the sun. They're built for the heat. They're built for the sun. They're built for the summer. And so you find them out there baking in a 90-degree, 95-degree hillside. But that's why God made them light-colored, right? White, they don't soak in the heat, and they don't retain the heat like a mule deer would. And so, yeah, they're built for that heat. And so I'm with you. I am going to go set some stealth cams on some water for antelope just because it's fun. It's just fun to do. But ultimately, yeah, it's just being mobile. That's what it's out of. Like, I don't have like a camp or like a base camp where I'm going to be hunting antelope from. It's wherever the truck ends up at night. That's where I'm hunting because I'm searching for a good buck in a stockable location. And when you're bow hunting, man, I mean, wildly different tactics than rifle hunting, right? Just because of the nature of the game. Getting 350 yards from an antelope, I was going to say is easy. For the most part, in the West is easy. Maybe some of the flats in New Mexico and maybe some Arizona stuff where it's like really wide open flats where they live and they know it. And so that's why they live out there, because they can see so well. But getting 350 yards from an antelope in Wyoming is not too challenging for the most part. But getting within 100 yards or even within 70 yards of an antelope for an archery shot is, man, that's tough. And we've talked about this in the past too, that, if we're just looking for a buck, we may pass up or drive by a nice buck because he's just not stockable, and you're going to burn a lot of time to stalk him. And maybe on a specific hunt, you're looking for maybe a certain number, or you want to kill a specific buck that you like, and you're set on that buck. That's a totally different tactic than just going out and doing some Western hunting and killing a respectable antelope. And so it's totally different. So, maybe in that case you would sit water, or, you would be hunting this antelope and sitting on him for days and days until he is in a spot where you can slip up and kill him. It's just a waiting game, right? And so yeah, there's no better time to scout antelope than hunting season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I think too. Yeah, I've also had some buddies do good at fence crossing spots. So antelope go under the fences as they crossed, and so you can find trails that go through fences.
Oh.
And then, Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've never used this tactic, but he did, where there was 3 or 4 trails going through fence lines, and he'd kind of stick some brush by a couple of them that would kind of filter him into the one spot that he would sit to go through his fence crossing, some tumbleweeds or whatever through that spot. And so he used that with good success as well. But you're right. If you're focused on one buck, that is a different game than if you're just running and gunning and spotting and stalking. And that's the way I like to do it. And even setting my goals at a bigger buck, I still I'm a spot and stalk addict. Like, I love it. It makes me better for deer, better for elk. I love the thrill of it. It suits me really well, like how I like to hunt. So that's how I'm gonna do antelope. But yeah, I mean, last year my tag was pretty much good for the whole state, and I don't know how many different places I hunted and finally killed a great buck. But I mean, I was 250 miles away from the last place I was just a day ago, or you can really cover some country and find some antelope. But yeah, they're a fun species to hunt because you get chances at them and you get plays at them. But you're right, you have to be pretty particular at where you're going to stalk a buck, because there's a lot of places where it doesn't do you any good to try to crawl out there. You waste a lot of time. Like, you got to find them in the right places. And if you do find a good buck, a lot of times you can sit on him until he makes a mistake or puts himself in a good position for a stalk. So if you find a good buck and he's not in a stalkable location, it doesn't mean that you can't kill that buck eventually. You just might have to sit on him and wait for him to be in a better spot. But it's not a guarantee when you're stalking antelope. There's a lot of failed stalks that go into it. But it seems like the more dialed in you get, and when you start looking for the terrain more so than the buck you want, like, that's when you start killing them. Like, really good ungulation and topography for antelope is just key, especially when you've got to get to 70 yards or closer. It's just really tough in that wide open flat stuff to ever crawl in on one. Now, I will say there's a lot more topography out in that country than it initially looks a lot of times. If you can find a drainage ditch, if you can find a little rise, like, there's a lot you can work with out there too. And it is a case of like learning what you can get away with and what you can't on antelope. You peek your head over a ridge line, they see you, the gig's up, and so you really got to know how to keep yourself hidden and out of sight of these antelope. Like, sight is their major defense. And so you kind of learn how to keep low, how to move without them seeing you. You can't get away with anything in the open, and then they can see 300 degrees around their head. There's one spot in the back of their head they can't see if they're looking dead away, but it hardly ever works to walk up on a buck that's looking away from you. He tilts his head just a little bit, and he catches that movement, and he's gone. And so you've really got to find the ungulation, the topography, and you get good at working that ungulation and topography. And then that really comes in handy for hunting deer and hunting elk, because you've got all this timber and all of this ungulation and topography now. When you're hunting mule deer and elk, you've got a lot to work with to where it doesn't feel like mission impossible when you find a buck. It's like, gosh, I can get in on him, because I've been stalking antelope in open country for, a week now. So yeah, that's going to be fun. I'm going to take a week and kind of travel around to some different places, and got some ideas, and go find some antelope and stalk them. But what a great warm-up for season. I think the key is just being mobile, is not getting too pigeonholed into a small area. Like, you have to cover country. Even in my home valley, I mean, you're talking miles, tens of miles, hundreds of miles of covering country to go find a buck in a good spot. And it's not as easy as it once was. Just like you stated, 95% of hunting. Like, you hear this from people, and I've got an aoudad tag in late season, and it's like, oh, that tag isn't what it used to be. And it's like, well, there's still rams in there. There's still a chance, And same thing for antelope. It seemed like it was mission impossible to kill them with a bow. There was nobody out there. And I would get 5 stalks a day, 7 stalks a day on bucks, and I wasn't as efficient as I am now. Like, I had to learn all those lessons. But now, I mean, I'm searching for good, mature bucks. But, I mean, if I'm being realistic, I mean, it's a good day if I get a stalk. If I get 2 or 3, that's an epic day of antelope hunting now. Like, it doesn't come as easy as it once did, and that's in really good antelope country too, with a good tag. I'm just not getting as many plays as I used to. There's more guys doing it. The antelope know the private public, but it's you just can't. You got to look at the positive side of things. That there's still opportunity out there. There's still antelope bucks out there. Like, I'm gonna find one to stalk, and eventually I'm gonna get a good arrow. Like, I know the end of the equation. Now I just got to work out the rest of it.
That's right.
It'll be fun.
It's wild, thinking about hunting like that, and you can go, like you said, for miles, and be hunting a buck over here, and then jump to another unit, and like in Wyoming, like I have my spot, like my unit that I can hunt, and that's it. And so I can only go so far, but I think this is going to allow me to focus in a little bit more, and why I've seen some nice bucks in here in the past, and some freaky ones with the droopy horn, and like for me to kill like a freaky antelope, or you call it a non-typical antelope or whatever, would be like, that's high on my list.
Okay.
Way high on my list. So if I can find one of those, and once again, I got a buddy that is a haul road driver, and he drives truck, and he sees bucks and lets me know what he sees. So that right there, that's a huge benefit, right? To having some intel, something of what they're seeing around. Now whether, he sees this antelope buck in July, am I going to find it in August? Within 5 miles of there, maybe not. But you get into finding like a special antelope, and then like that's the one that you like want to kill. Like, man, the game just changed so much, and it's so different from how we're used to hunting in Montana. And so I'm looking forward to that, because it's a bit of a change. It's something a little bit different, and I've run this country before, so I just know, where to start looking. Mm-hmm. And so I know they're going to be there. It's just like, I hope there's something special this year. And that's what I tell guys too with antelope hunting. You're so much better off to hunt more frequently, like what you're doing every year, than to save up 10 or 15 points and hunt once. Because you may have the best unit in the state, and on a dry year or a bad winter, and you're screwed. But you have way better odds if you're hunting more often in a mediocre unit, which there's a lot of those, and hit it on a good year where you have an ideal winter and an excellent spring green up, which I believe is what we had this year. We got rain in April this year, early April. And so things greened up early. And so far from what I've seen, there's been some nice antelope. So you're better off to have, a tag on a good year and just do it more often to find that next level antelope, or whatever it is, a big buck that you're looking for. I don't care what it scores, but whatever you're looking for is you're definitely better off to just hunt antelope more often than once every 10 or 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, I think you're spot on with that assessment.
And deer too, right? Deer, elk, like all this stuff, like you got to hunt. And I've heard more stories of guys hunting these very limited units, and they, doggone it, it's an off year. There's a tough winter, and there just isn't the buck or bull available that they thought there would be. And so it's like, golly, I just burned 20 points on this for what? And so you can't control the winters. You can't control predation. Well, to a level you can. But you just can't control these things, and so you just got to play the odds and hunt more often.
Yep. Well, and it makes you better at those skill sets that, in the end, that's what kills animals. It's not getting lucky and drawing a good unit and killing a monster. It's building those hunting skills to go in. There's a lot of great animals that come from general units every single year, or low draw units that great, exceptional animals come out of it. So the better you can build your hunting skill set and your ability to be able to find these animals and then kill them when you find them, just the more success and more big animals are going to hit the dirt than some special tag that you've waited 20 years to hunt. Yep. So yeah, I think that is the key. And this year for me, I've got a couple special draws, nothing, one limited entry draw or premium unit, but for the most part, it's a steady diet of general units and stuff that I can draw so I can go hunt and work on my skill sets and try to find some good animals. But it's going to be fun. It starts getting really exciting this time of year when we're counting down the days. It seems like it takes forever to get here, and then pretty soon it's just here. And definitely after the 4th, time just flies by. You know, the summer's gone dang near. So, yeah, we got to make sure we're doing all those little things, the scouting, and then the planning too. You know, you mentioned for your deer hunt the dirt bike and using the e-bike, and you got to have the right tools for the job when you show up, like this planning and plotting. And you talked about antelope hunting, how you're going to sleep where you end up in your truck. You know that, you know, like having the right strategy for the right hunt is really beneficial and could be the key to success or failure. You know, you don't want to show up to a unit and figure out you needed a dirt bike to be able to get to where you wanted to access because you can't get a truck there. And so, you know, having the right plans for these places is huge. And I have a lot of through hunts I'm doing this year that I've been scouting out. In fact, the spot that I scouted this past weekend is a spot where I'm going to leave a dirt bike on one end and my truck on the other end, and I'm going to hunt all the way through. And it's all really good country in and through there. So you're starting to plan your strategy, and now I'm starting to even work out the little details, the drink additives that I'm ordering off the internet. I've been drinking that Element, which is a hydration supplement, which they're no longer a sponsor, but they build a great product. So I'm getting that stuff in. I'm starting to dial in all my food I'm going to need, whether I'm going to be living out of a cooler, whether I'm going to be backpacking. But a lot of these hunts, I have to be prepared for both, because even if I am truck hunting, I may backpack in for a couple days. So I've got to have my bins full of food, dehydrated meals. I've got to have my cooler situation dialed, all my gear dialed. And so, you know, right now is the time to order just even that little stuff you need for these hunts. You can't wait till the last minute. So it's dialing in all these logistics as we start to get ready for these hunts that could make the difference between success and failure. So it's a lot of plotting and planning, and then a lot of getting work done too. Like we do, you know, have jobs and families we have to support. And so we have to make sure that we're getting all our work done. Part of that is us recording our podcast so we can cut loose when it gets to August and September. And same thing in the construction world, making sure I'm getting everything done and everybody dialed in. But, you know, that's a huge key to success for me, is having the time to go cut these legs loose and go try to arrow this muley buck I want to kill. And if I don't have the days to do it, it's not going to happen. And so I've got to work hard right now, and I've got to spend time with my family. The 4th, we're just doing family barbecues, and all that stuff is really important to me as well. But all of that stuff is key to me being successful come season.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're talking about, you know, prepping, and, you know, I'm just thinking how vastly different we just described our 4 hunts. We each are going to be hunting antelope and mule deer, and they're completely different, logistically, like wildly different, really. And so, and that's why it's a case-by-case basis, no matter where you're hunting out west, identifying these things and then planning accordingly. That's what's important, like what you just illustrated. And it's a balance, you know, with everything, and you can only do so much. And, you know, when I was single, I could spend more time out there, and I did, but that's not my reality anymore. And same thing, you know, I got a 4-year-old boy that is very impressionable right now and loves being with dad and loves hunting and loves being out there. And it's so I'm going to spend as much time as I can with him too, but I also can incorporate time with him into scouting and even hunting and all these other things to, you know, that's what we're doing. This is the lifestyle, right? That's what we're living. That's what we're breathing, is the Western bow hunting lifestyle. And so that's what's fun for me, is incorporating him and spending a ton of time with him. And maybe I'm not going to be able to go as hard, you know, scouting or glassing or whatever it is with him. But, you know, for him at a young age, memories that are going to last forever is hunting with dad. I know that's how it was with me growing up, was hunting with my dad and my brother. So, yeah, it's circling back. It seems daunting, and it seems like it's an impossible task. But when you break it down to all these little variables and you start whittling away and you're chipping away at your tasks, all of a sudden, by the time season rolls around, it's like I got it done and I got prepared and I'm ready to hunt. And that's important. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better with all the little things now. Just because you're not out scouting or hunting or glassing or setting stealth cams or whatever, you're planning your food. You're making sure I need a new dirt bike tire on my front. Like all these little things that you need to set yourself up for success during hunting season.
Well, and also, too, we have to remember there's seasons to our life. Like, when you were single, that was a different season of your life. With your 4-year-old, that's a different season of your life, and it's important to spend time. And so I think overall, we talk so much about succeeding and arrowing a buck, and really it's what drives us, But in the end, the enjoyment is in the process. The enjoyment, like we're so fortunate to be able to live in a country where we have this opportunity to be able to go out. I mean, there's a lot of places in this world where people just work, where they don't have this enjoyment in the outdoors. They don't get to go bow hunt antelope or bow hunt mule deer or go live out their life's passion. Like they just have to work all the time to provide for their family and work themselves into the grave. And we all have to work. We all have to provide. But it's important to remember why we're doing this as well, as it is the enjoyment. We are really fortunate to be able to have the luxury of free time, to be able to go chase these critters, which lights our soul on fire. Like, just remember to enjoy it along the way. And really, the real enjoyment, like with all the animals I've arrowed and some great critters, some great adventures, but really the enjoyment is in the process of trying to arrow that critter, of being able to spend the time out in nature, to be able to immerse yourself in this experience of this predator-prey relationship to try to chase these bucks or these bulls around. Like that's really the funnest part of this whole deal. So I just need to remind myself at times too, it's like, don't stress too much. Like I'm going to have time. I'm going to be able to be in the mountains with my bow and arrow. I'm going to chase critters. And whether I arrow one or not, I'm going to give it my all. But I try to enjoy it while I'm there, enjoy the country I'm in, enjoy the experience. Like, it's really fun stuff, and we're really fortunate for what we get to do, and everybody for that matter. And remember, there's seasons to your life. There's times when you're going to be able to put more effort into an endeavor, into a hunt. And there's periods in your life where you put less because you're putting emphasis on your family or spending time with your wife or making sure that you don't get fired from your job or whatever the case is. But, just enjoy the time you do have. Even if you're a weekend warrior, even if you didn't get scouting done, it's like, don't stress yourself out too much. Like you want to do everything possible to try to find success, but remember to enjoy it along the way.
Yeah, that's very well said, and it kind of brings it back full circle. The anticipation and having something to look forward to. I talk to guys or maybe just people through the years, where it's friends or family, and they don't have anything to look forward to. And that's the spice of life, right? Is finding something that you're passionate about, or maybe just it could be a hobby, something you enjoy, anything. But your quality of life is going to be so much better if you have something to look forward to and have some anticipation. And I think that ultimately is what gives us the ability to stay positive. And in this world that we live in, there's a lot of things dragging us down. And having something to look forward to definitely helps with that, and helps people cope with the 8-to-5 grind and cope with the stresses of modern living. And so, yeah, that's, I mean, I couldn't say it better, is, having something to look forward to and just really enjoy it, because that's what it's all about. And that's why we all do it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, nailed it. All right, man. Well, we've been recording for an hour. I want to thank our sponsors for today's show. So Stealth Cam, you're going to be using a lot of Stealth Cam. You mentioned it today. I will be too. Just such a great product. And then also On Glass, which you'll see footage from us this season. We'll be grabbing On Glass footage, phone scope footage. It's just an easy adapter. So just great companies. We really appreciate the support. Helps us bring you these podcasts bi-weekly. So yeah, thanks to those guys for sure.
Absolutely. 2 great tools for early season scouting. I'll be using them both.
That's right. Yeah, me too. All right. Thanks, Dan.